if you want to put up the next slide, Sarah, just and then um, we'll start the video in a minute. But I'm going to first share just an excerpt from this. This is from Inhale, Exhale, Draw, which was the first animated film, short animated film that I created out of a project that called the Anxiety Project, which is now over 15 years old and includes countless drawings and several animated films and several performance pieces. And this piece was created right around the beginning of the pandemic in early 2020. And it was sort of a new stage in this work of that I was doing called the Anxiety Project, and trying to find words and images that could explain what I believed to be the impact that drawing as a form of meditation was having on my brain and on my ability to manage my life with anxiety and depression. And I had nothing but anecdotal evidence other than the fact that I have a drawing as meditation practice that I do daily, and I felt that it was really sort of changing was a transformative thing for me. So I'll share a little bit of this animated film, and then we'll talk a little bit more about the project. So when you're ready, Sarah, push play. From all outward appearances, I was a confident, self-possessed person,
but inside I was slowly dying. Like most people with anxiety and depression, I learned how to keep my secret. I thought the problem was me. I was different and not good enough. I was weird. As I got older, I felt angry. It got harder and harder to keep my secret. When it was time to come out of hiding, I didn't know how. So I started drawing.
The images captured how I was feeling much better than any words I tried to use. After 3 years of making work, I felt a growing sense that I might actually come apart at the seams. Once I understood how good drawing makes me feel, I became intentional about drawing. I draw every day, and sometimes I'll just simply draw what I see: birds, flowers, landscapes, people, myself, to stay grounded in the here and now. Inhale, exhale, breathe. Now draw. Drawing can provide just the distraction your brain needs. So grab a pencil, a pen, a crayon, a piece of chalk, anything you can make a mark with. And then find some paper, any paper. Draw things you can see in the room. Draw things you see outside your window. Use more than one of the tools that you've picked up and make marks. Doodle, scribble, draw for at least 10 or 15 minutes. And don't worry what it looks like. Just do it. Your brain will thank you. Thanks. So that, and I just quickly, because I edited that down, I want to make sure I give credit to Alexander White and Cindy White, who were my collaborators on that. And Alexander was the lead animator and who taught me a lot as we were going through that process, and his and Cindy White, who directed it. And that film took off a little bit, and it also screened with the World Health Organization's Health for All Film Festival that year, and it had enough success that it really started to make me ask even more deeply questions about the usefulness of drawing in terms of particularly as an intervention or a way of managing mental health. So as you see, for years I'd filled sketchbooks with trembling lines, restless scribbles, spirals that tightened and unraveled, doodling like crazy. They weren't simply drawings, they were visual echoes of how my nervous system felt. Shaky, relentless, loopy. And it was somewhere in that process that I suddenly discovered that, oh wow, while I'm drawing, I calm down, my breath slows down, my heart rate slows down. So those drawings were giving form to these private struggles, and they did what, as a theater trained guy, what I thought art really does do well, which is make the invisible visible. And particularly as a theater artist, that I always saw that as kind of the mission of my work as a theater and performance artist, to make the invisible visible. But all along the way, and I started searching, looking at the research that was available, particularly on drawing as an intervention in anxiety or in depression. And I found some studies that were, there wasn't a lot of research at the time that I could find or that I could get my hands on, but there was enough that kept spurring on my own curiosity for, what is there a way to bring science to this, and to help tell the story even better than I was trying to tell it with just my own drawing and performances. Could the drawing be more than representation? Could it be an intervention for others? And I then kind of blind emailed Sarah and Kristen Buss at the Emotion Development Lab at Penn State, asking if they thought this was of interest, or if there was a way to turn this into a legitimate study, and heard back almost immediately from Sarah, and it has become, one of the best collaborations of my career. And so now, to kind of tell you where the study is and what we've learned, I'll turn things over to Sarah.
Thanks, Bill. Hi, everyone. I'm happy to be here. Yeah, like it was said, my research focuses on anxiety, understanding how anxiety emerges in development, and the neurobiological underpinnings of these trajectories. And anxiety disorders are among the most common psychopathologies, which is what drives my interest there. A lot of people who experience anxiety don't receive treatment, reporting reasons like barriers to access, viewing therapy as difficult to approach, and also among those with subclinical or even like typical levels of anxiety, they might report difficulty finding ways to manage those feelings in daily life. So this collaboration with Bill has been so exciting and fulfilling for me, because I've been able to be more on the applied research side, whereas the bulk of my other research projects are more on the basic research side. But a bit of background on the scientific rationale for this work. Mindfulness meditation has been empirically supported to have a wide variety of mental health benefits, including managing stress and anxiety. But even here, there are some practical or diminished practical benefits for some, due to people feeling like they don't do it right, or difficulty initiating or establishing a regular practice. So in our project, we're leveraging drawing as an approachable, tangible way to engage with mindfulness with the goal of reducing anxiety and examining how this artistic experience, like Bill described, engages psychophysiology. So what is intervention? We adopted Bill's own experiences from his drawing practice into a guided drawing activity that consists of a 20-minute recording, video recording, and we also have audio recording versions that's led by Bill. And Bill guides participants as they draw objects from nature, like the leaves shown here. And the mindfulness elements include things like focused breathing, being non-judgmental of thoughts, behaviors, mistakes, the drawing itself. Embodied movement is a big part of it, with reminders to notice how it feels to move the pencil on the page, connecting the feeling of breathing to the feeling of drawing, and then also process over product. So the drawing at the end doesn't matter. It's about being present in the moment, really seeing the object, feeling connected to your breath and your current state. And all of these were elements that Bill identified as important in his own drawing practice, and also aligned with the elements of mindfulness in that literature that are thought to be active mechanisms of change. So in our prior work, that was the foundation of this current mind project that I'm going to tell you more about. Our initial work, we found that a single lab-based session of this guided drawing exercise did significantly decrease state anxiety, which is the figure all the way to the left-hand side of the screen. So that's current anxious feelings decreased pre to post drawing. And we showed that the magnitude of change in this state anxiety was greater among those who did the guided drawing compared to control groups. So the control groups were people instructed to just free draw whatever they want for the same period of time. And then the other group was a basic control, where it was like basic paper and pencil type activities like a maze or connect the dots. So there does seem to be something specific to the drawing plus mindfulness that is helping reduce anxiety. The next figure over is showing that we also measured physiological relaxation in that study. So we used cardiac monitors that captured respiratory sinus arrhythmia, or RSA. That's a measure of parasympathetic nervous system engagement. And the parasympathetic nervous system is a branch of our autonomic nervous system that's active when we're in periods of relaxation, and it's thought to reflect emotion regulation. And another insight from this prior work was that those who showed greater decreases in state anxiety across this single lab session also were the ones that tended to report a decline in anxiety symptoms 1 week later when we followed up with participants. So this prior work provided the first empirical evidence that this guided drawing experience can move anxiety for the better and also alter psychophysiology in the moment. So a major goal of the MIND project, which is the project that we got the NeuroArts Investigator Award for, is to test whether guided drawing changes a neurophysiological measure of emotion regulation. And this target metric is called delta beta coupling, or DBC. It measures the coherence, or the crosstalk, between the emotion generating regions of the brain and the emotion control regions of the brain. So we capture this using mobile EEG headsets. We used a motive headset pictured here. This EEG records the electrical activity of the brain from the surface of the scalp. And the neural activity we're interested are the oscillations that are happening in the delta and beta frequency bands. That's why it's called delta beta coupling. So delta and beta reflect emotion generating and control area activity, respectively. So we're looking at the coherence or coupling between delta and beta because um, prior work using DBC to predict anxiety has demonstrated that there's a link between anxiety and high coupling at rest, which is interpreted as excessive control or neural regulatory inefficiency when it's a period of just rest, safety, nothing threatening or stressful is happening. So if guided drawing is successful at engaging this regulatory circuitry, especially when there's habitual drawing, then we'd expect to see lower resting state delta beta coupling over time, or decoupling is the other term that we would use that would indicate a greater regulatory efficiency and balance. So here's some detail about what our participants experienced. They were invited to complete 2 lab visits that are separated by 4 weeks of at-home guided drawing sessions. So at the first visit, they report about their anxiety symptoms and their emotion regulation difficulties on questionnaires. And then they do a baseline measure of current anxiety, followed by the guided drawing experience for 20 minutes, concluding with a post-session current anxiety report. So we record delta beta coupling throughout this whole portion of the visit, as indicated with the little brains. Today, I'm going to share findings related to the resting state delta beta coupling, but we do also plan to look at dynamics during the drawing experience. So after the first visit, the participants go home and they complete sessions at home twice a week for 4 weeks. So that's 8 sessions total. And these sessions were guided by an audio recording version of the drawing exercise, the same one they do in the lab. And they're also, another difference from the lab is that they're asked to find a relatively quiet environment and choose any natural object that they have access to for the drawing. So, and that way it's more like flexible or personalized. Then after 4 weeks at home, they return to the lab to complete the same session as visit 1. So that will let us look at long-term change after 1 month of guided drawing sessions. So here are the questions that we're looking at with this data. We ask whether current anxiety or state anxiety decreases within sessions, particularly at the at-home visits, which is the new piece of the protocol for this study. And then we're also testing whether guided drawing changes delta beta coupling, if it changes anxiety symptoms, and if it changes emotion regulation difficulties over this 1 month period. So here's some information about our participants. We have our demographic information at the bottom. I also want to point out that we asked participants at the start of the study about their experience and habits with both meditation and drawing. So that's what you see on the top corners. So while the majority of participants did have at least some exposure to meditation in the past, which is to be expected because a lot of people have heard of meditation and experienced it maybe like at school or other kinds of programs, but many did not meditate regularly in this sample, similar to the general population. And then also, similarly, most participants did not have a regular practice of drawing. So this is relevant to us because a goal of this work is to provide an anxiety management tool that can be approachable for anyone, people that have experience with mindfulness and or drawing and people that don't. So regardless of drawing or meditation experience. Okay, so here's what we found so far. At each of the at-home sessions, drawing significantly reduced state anxiety. So we have evidence that doing this at home in this more personalized and flexible way than in the lab, that does have the expected effect on anxious feelings. So just to contextualize what this figure is showing, the score threshold that differentiates low state anxiety from moderate is at 38. So we can see that on average, people are not feeling extremely anxious at the start of their sessions, but the drawing experience is moving participants from a more moderate level towards a low level. And it is a significant difference with some moderate to very strong effect sizes for some of the sessions. Interestingly, we don't see any significant change over the session. So the magnitude of average anxiety change was consistent across the 2 weeks. In terms of changes from visit 1 to visit 2, I was very excited to see that resting state delta beta coupling did significantly decrease as predicted across the 1 month. So this, I do want to point out, this is a partial sample since we still have some EEG data that our team is processing. But it's a really promising initial result. It shows that the expected increase in decoupling at resting state here, indicated by the values farther away from 0, did emerge after the intervention. And then how are people actually feeling subjectively? We also saw a significant decrease in anxiety symptoms and also a significant decrease in self-reported emotion regulation difficulties across the 1 month. So altogether, we do have some exciting evidence to support that subjective and neurophysiological benefit of this 1 month of guided drawing. So our next steps with this project is to look at delta beta coupling during drawing, like I said, but also to look at RSA, that measure of parasympathetic nervous system engagement, and delta beta coupling together. So I mentioned that we looked at RSA in our prior study. So now that we can look at both peripheral and central nervous system regulations together in this sample. Few studies have looked at task-based delta beta coupling. So other than resting state. And those studies that have looked at task-based tend to do it in response to a stressor. And also that I know of, there's no studies that have looked at RSA and delta beta coupling together. So this is new territory, which is exciting for me. And our future plan study is to focus on habit formation too. We want to ask the question, does guided drawing induce greater habit formation compared to meditation without drawing? Or maybe it helps certain people to have the drawing element added. And I do think these slides are going to be shared, but in case not, you could grab the QR code now. Because we have an online version of the guided drawing experience if you're interested, and you can try it yourself. This is the audio version that our participants had during the at-home sessions. Move that up for another second. But then I also wanted to say thank you to our Blueprint and our team at the Motion Regulation Lab. And these are some of the drawings from our research participants. We asked them if they would like to donate their drawings. Then they can. They're all de-identified. They're not being evaluated. That's an important part of the procedure. You can see the wide variety of natural objects that our participants drew. Questions. So, yeah.
Thank you. That was fascinating. I can't wait to, follow this study and see how we might be able to implement this in our hospital. We do have a couple of questions. Kim is asking if you can refresh our memories on what RSA stands for.
Yes, that's respiratory sinus arrhythmia.
Okay.
And it's reflecting the parasympathetic nervous system.
Thank you.
I could put it in the chat because
That is great.
they're big words.
Donald says, fascinating project, thanks. As you know, there are a number of projects using guided writing and reflective writing for clinicians and students. Do you have any thoughts about the commonalities between writing and drawing?
No.
I only to say that I've wondered quite a bit about it because there is obviously, I mean, our study in the both in the lab and at home only requires like a number two pencil and a piece of paper, which was one of our goals too, is to keep this very accessible that, everybody can get their hands on a number two pencil and a scrap of paper, right? And so that, there is a kind of, in my mind, there is a connection between, the cursive writing in particular or printing and that kind of embodied activity of the hand moving across the page. So yeah, I've wondered about that, but I think that for me, when I'm drawing as this kind of mindful activity or this form of meditation, cognitively, I think I'm engaged in an entirely different way than when I'm writing. I'm thinking about syntax and grammatic structure, and when I'm drawing, I'm trying to not think at all, actually, and let my hand follow the curve of a leaf, the movement. So there probably are some interesting connections, but I don't know what they'd be.
If I can just comment.
Yeah, I also think that's in. Go ahead.
I mean, I think that the free writing advocates talk about writing in a similar way. Disengage, just write. It doesn't matter if you write poop, 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 or it's or using other words.
And I have written that.
There you go. And that it may not be the same meditative state that you achieve similar to the relaxation response and in other places of mindfulness, but something in my experience as a writing teacher does happen that is kind of magic with free writing exercises. So it just makes me wonder whether or not it'd be really cool to do some of these physiological studies and see if there's a similar outcome.
Yeah, I think that's a great connection. Yeah.
I think that'd be really interesting. One of the reasons that the drawing was so appealing to me is that this study was with adults, but I'm a developmentalist. So I have visions in the future of using this with younger kids that might, not yet have the language or introspection abilities verbally, but can still engage with an artistic practice. We do have data from an adolescent sample that where we see similar effects with the emerging adults, which is not surprising because this sample is 18 to 25. So they're pretty similar.
Great. We have a question from Talia. Any sense if this approach could help with depression?
Well, again, that's one of the reasons I approached Sarah was I've lived with anxiety and depression pretty much my entire life, multiple diagnoses, therapy, medication, et cetera, et cetera. And when I approached Sarah and the Emotion Development Lab, it was on both levels. I had come to believe that this drawing practice of mine was helping in both of those situations, in terms of the anxiety, but also in terms of alleviating some of the symptoms of depression. I think, and again, that was an anecdotal thing that I brought to the table with Sarah and the team in hopes that we could find, evidence to support that beyond the anecdotal. Yeah.
We do have some data to support that too. So the focus of this study and our previous studies are anxiety, but we also asked about mood symptoms, and negative affect shows the same pattern of effect as the state anxiety measure. Negative affect is decreased following the guided drawing. And we measured depressive symptoms at pre and post, and there is a trend level effect where symptoms decrease over time. It's not as large as the anxiety effect. but it seems that there is something there, and it makes sense to me because delta beta coupling and other kinds of ways that we measure emotion regulation, RSA, have similar associations with anxiety as they do with depression.
Great. Thank you so much. As I said, I can't wait to follow you on your NeuroArts work, and this fit in so well with the rest of our agenda today. So looking forward to it.
Thank you.